Hi guys, welcome back to another episode of Posh and Plastic. I'm Amber and I'm here with my co-host Kylie, the Alex to my Harper. Oh wait, I did that backwards.
That's okay. We're just keeping it fresh. Hey guys.
We've just been here chatting about some stuff. I don't know what we could fill them in on. We've just been chatting about landlines, honestly, and we were talking
Yeah, like
about
how
cordless
things are kind
phones.
of returning back to the way they were. Like people are wanting cordless phones again, getting away from the technology, getting rid of self-checkouts. We're just reminiscing on the old times when things were more simple.
Oh, it used to be.
Yeah. I really hope for just things to go back. We can go back to basic cable and yeah, we're getting over the Airbnbs, going back to hotels.
It's
What's next?
just,
Like Uber, like we'll just go back to taxis. The Uber Eats, let's all just get off our butts and go get our own food.
yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like I'm going back in time with the ways I'm doing things. Like I hate being so accessible all the time. I hate that my
Hmm.
phone is constantly like able to ping me. I honestly hate all the streaming services and I'm looking to go back to basic cable. I know we're definitely talking about it. It's nice to have information quickly and accessibly, but I miss not being accessible.
Yeah, it's not good for our brains to just be available in 20 ways 24/7. It's not healthy.
Yeah, and like we were talking about, like anxiety, this breeds anxiety. Like Slack and Teams, both of those noises could definitely trigger in anxiety in most people, I think.
Yeah. So, like, for the listeners, I just left my job, like my day job, and I'm pursuing other things. But I'm telling you, like, I'm still hearing the team sound, and I'm like, what is that sound? Like, I have
Hmm.
to remind myself, like, that's my brain making that up because it's so traumatizing.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're having to like get used to not being like afraid that someone's going to contact you for something. Like I know like that's just like a thing,
Yeah. Yeah. And like, Amber was asking, like, oh, how's it going since you like left? And I'm like, honestly, like, I'm still decompressing.
right?
Like, this is not healthy, guys. Like, we need to change and go back. Hence our podcast, right?
Literally. So do you want to hit him? You want to hit him with the line?
Yeah. All right, guys. So let's just jump into it now. Wind up, wind down, and let's hit rewind.
All right. What have you got for us today? We'll start with the 90s as we usually do.
Yeah, I've been on a sister kick lately. I'm not ready to give that episode yet, but I thought I would just do like the Mowry family today because they were big in the 90s. And although there are four siblings in total, three of them rose to great fame in the 90s. We have T and Tamera, the twins, of course, and then their younger brother Tahj. They do have a younger brother, Tavior, and he's actually in the entertainment industry as a musician. But
Oh,
we're not really going to talk about him. Um, he was born in 93, so like,
okay.
you know. But anyway, let's get into it. My resources for today are IMDb, People, and YouTube, and many more. So in 1978, Timothy and Darlene Mowry married in a quote shotgun wedding as they started their family in, I'm going to butcher this, but Gilnhausen, Germany. They were both deployed there for the US Army. And that year, they also welcomed twins Tia and Tamera into the world. They moved back to the United States, moving to Texas, then later moved to Honolulu, Hawaii, where they gave birth to the twins' younger brother, Tahj. And then they moved back to Texas. Now, in 1990, the twins decided they wanted to get into show business and they begged their mother to move them to LA so they could pursue this dream. Their mother agreed, but on one condition: they had 1 month to land a role. Otherwise, forget it.
Wow.
Yeah, so she was a little lenient on this condition. So it could be any type of role. Like, it could even be a commercial. And
You know what's interesting? Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. But
no,
you know what's
go ahead.
interesting about this is it's like I think you hear about like the stage moms a lot that like wanted to push
Mhm.
their kids into show business and kind of live vicariously through them. So I think it's kind of refreshing to hear a different story where it's like the kid really wanted to be in like the kids like the twins really wanted to be in show business and she was supportive but also like still being like hey, like we're not going to take this too crazy and like off the rails here.
Yeah, it's like it's either meant to be or it's not. We're
Yeah.
not going to waste our time. Yeah, you either hear about the show moms or the parents that didn't support at all and like the kid or young adult has suffer or whatever and like find their way and then they resent their parents. But yeah,
Yeah.
this is like that happy middle. It's like healthy like I'm not going to push you. This is what you want, and I will support you, but to a certain limit. And then if it's not meant to be, we need to let this go. Yeah, so she gave them 1 month, and the twins happened to pull that off. A fun fact, so Tamera revealed this on the talk show The Real, that they actually lied in order to get their commercial gig. And this was for their first commercial. So the lie that they told was that they could double dutch. Um, If you don't know what double dutching is, or you've forgotten because it's been so long, it is jump rope where there are two ropes going um, on and off with each other. So you have to jump both ropes. They had to quickly figure this out, how to double dutch, because neither of them knew how to do it and they had to film this commercial. So they went out to like this playground area. I think it was at a school, and they saw some girls double dutching. So they're screaming through the fence, "Hey, hey, you guys know how to double dutch?" And the girls were like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Will you please teach us how to double dutch?" And the girls taught them. So
Oh.
they pulled that off. But like, talk about hustling. They're like, "Yeah, we can double dutch."
I love that.
So yeah, so they got this gig, and Darlene kept on her word and moved the girls to Los Angeles, but this was not easy. She was still in the army, and you can't just put your 2 weeks in and call it a day. So yeah, this is the military. So Darlene had to work really hard and make a case in order to do this. And it was a great sacrifice that she made for her 12-year-old girls. And Timothy, their father, had to actually hang back in Texas and finish out his contract with the Army. So the family made a lot of sacrifices for these kids to be in show business. And even to this day, they they always talk about how grateful they are for their family. So from there, the twins landed many commercials and small roles. And Tahj additionally was booking commercials and small roles. His most well known early role was as Teddy in the hit family sitcom Full House. He played as one of Michelle's best friends, and he was in 14 episodes from 1991 to 1995.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was in a lot of them. And another fun fact, he and Tamera did an episode of Full House as well, where they shared a character role as Denise. And that was, I believe, Teddy's older sister. So Full House was doing the same thing they did with Michelle, where they're using twins to play one role. Um, in 1993, the family welcomed the youngest of the family, Tavion. And in 1994, the twins hit the jackpot when they were casted into the sitcom Sister Sister, where they would be the stars of the show. Keeping this brief because we will do an episode on this later, but the show is based around twins Tia Landry and Tamera Campbell, who were separated at birth through adoption and meet each other in the mall. And consequently, Tia's single mother, Lisa, and Tamara's widowed father, Ray, agree to cohabitate so the girls can grow up together. And the show aired on CBS, the WB, and eventually UPN. And it was a hit after school series that kids love to watch. And this really put the girls on the map. I assume you watch Sister
Oh
Sister.
my god. Of course. Of course.
I feel like everybody did. It was such a great show.
Definitely.
And while the girls were working season after season on this hit show we all love so dearly, Tahj continued to work. He did a lot of voiceover roles for animated shows such as Sonic the Hedgehog, Aladdin, and Timon and Pumbaa. But in 1987, Tahj finally found his breakout role playing TJ Henderson, the main character of Smart Guy. Now, a brief breakdown of this show. TJ is a certified genius, and the series starts where he jumps from elementary school to his junior year of high school, where he joins his older brother Marcus and his friends. And he often gets caught up in their antics because Marcus is like not the best behaved student, and neither are his friends. He's trying to balance having this unusual intelligence while also fitting in with his new peers that are much older than him. And this show was also on the WB. So, with this coinciding with his sister's television shows being on the network did a crossover event, having the twins go on an episode of Smart Guy and Tahj guest starring on Sister Sister. So, in Smart Guy, Tia and Tamera play twins, and Marcus meets them, and he ends up being interested in both of them for different reasons. One's kind of fun, which I believe is played by Tia, which is kind of opposite of Sister Sister. And then Tamera plays the more intellectual one. So Marcus creates like his own twin and dresses up different and names him Marquise. And so he's playing doubles so he can date both of them. But obviously he's not really that intellectual. So he's got TJ feeding him stuff to say to her. And then in the episode of Sister Sister, Tahj remains his role as TJ Henderson. So he's a child genius, and he's hired to tutor T and Tamera to help them pass their SATs. So did you watch Smart Guy?
I did, yeah, I did.
Yeah, that one's a good one too. Those are both comfort shows for me. So if I'm watching those, I'm probably not okay.
Yeah, I know. I was gonna say that's like one of your sick shows. Mine's Gossip Girl.
Yes, yes. The Sister Sister was canceled in 1999. After that wrapped, the girls worked on another WB Kids show. It was called Detention, and this was an animated series. So they did voiceover work this time, following their little brother's influence there. And additionally, Smart Guy ended in 1999. So bummer, both of those shows ended. But they've done a lot of smaller roles here and there. But I did want to go into some big highlights of their careers after these big shows. So, as if Sister Sister and Smart Guy weren't iconic enough, the Mowrys gave us something equally, if not more iconic, 17 again.
Wait, 17 again. Hold on. Why am I
Yeah, so
so
this is not the 17 again with Zac Efron.
right? That's the
So
first thing that came to mind.
so this one's a little different. So that one actually uses the number 17 in the title. This one, the word 17 is spelled out.
Oh,
Do you not remember this movie?
I do. Maybe honestly, maybe it's like back there. Maybe if you like explain it, I'll be like,
Okay.
oh yeah,
Okay.
duh.
Yes. Okay. So this one, yeah, this one's got a little bit of a different storyline as well. So in this film, Tia and Tahj are playing siblings, and they live with their parents, obviously. But Tahj plays a character named Willie in this movie, and he's a kid who's really into science, and he's always crafting up like experiments and stuff. And he's currently playing around with like these chemicals to de-age you, like make you younger.
Hmm.
And he's doing it in the form of soap. And both of their grandparents come for a visit, and they're divorced and hate each other. And so they're not getting along at all. And both of them happen to get their hands on this soap. I think they go in the garage and just assume they can grab it and help themselves. So they both bathe with the soap. Next morning they wake up, they're 17-year-old versions of themselves, and they're like freaking out. But then I think okay, and then the grandmother is played by Tamera, like the younger
Okay.
grandmother. And I can't remember if she goes to school, but the younger grandfather does, and he is a looker, let me tell you. That's what happens in that movie. It's pretty good, actually. I mean, the Zac Efron 17 again is great,
Yeah.
but I personally, this one is what I would prefer if I had to pick one. So if you guys are wanting to stream this, you can for free. I found it on Tubi. So you can watch it on Tubi.
I may
I'll
need to
link it in the show
refresh.
notes. Thank me later.
Yeah, I need a refresh. I definitely did see this movie after you explained it. I don't know why the soap and everything like clicked it all in my head. I don't exactly remember the movie, but I definitely remember watching it at some point.
Yeah, definitely watch it. I'm gonna link this in the show notes, guys. I'll send you the link now. But um yeah, it's a great movie. And then in the 2000s, the Disney Channel acquired rights to Sister Sister and Smart Guy. So that's where we played reruns on this channel, and I think a lot of us really got into those shows then. I mean, I would watch both of them occasionally when they were on WB and UPN, but it was like only if I caught them. But when they got on Disney Channel, I would watch them religiously. And this was also the time that Disney Channel stars were becoming more of a feature on the channel. And the Mowry siblings were sort of like grandfathered into that with stars like Kyla Pratt, Christy Carlson Romano, Lelaine, and then, of course, one of our favorite people in the world, Hilary Duff. The channel had a commercial special called Express Yourself. And this is where Disney Channel stars were given a topic to speak upon, such as music, sports, friends, etc. And they just like give their opinions and talk about their, lives a little bit, and it kind of makes you feel more relatable. This was before social media. So this is our access to celebrities in a way. So Tahj was frequently on there, and he's also starred in some Disney Channel original movies, such as Hounded and The Poof Point. Do you remember either of these?
Poof Point is sticking out in my head, but I don't remember the plot of it. I just remember the name.
Okay, well, good news on these movies too. They're both available on Disney Plus.
Yes.
So the Poof Point it's kind of similar in a sense to 17 again.
Hmm.
That one is their parents are scientists and they make this machine to make themselves younger. Um, so they're trying to test it out, and they poof themselves, and they're getting younger and younger by the day. So it's like we're young adults, we're teenagers, we're kids, we're toddlers, and then the kids realize, well, what happens once they're like past infancy? They go poof. So they're trying to figure out how to undo it.
Okay, yeah. That one I remember.
I love that movie. I feel like it was an underrated decom.
Oh, yeah.
That one. And then Hounded, I remember he and his brother end up like kidnapping by mistake. I think they kidnapped this Pomeranian that belongs to the rich kid at his school, and they're trying to like return it but not get caught. And it's like this show dog.
I kind of remember this one too.
Yeah. The decoms were great back then.
I know. They had really good plots, honestly. Like, for as wild as they were still good.
Yeah, for real. And then in 2002, Taj received his next bigger role, Wade, in the hit animated series Kim Possible. Kim Possible was a great series for the Disney Channel, as both girls and boys enjoyed the action-packed spy show that was also filled with plenty of comedy. Thank you, Ron Stoppable. So Wade was Kim's like intel specialist who was always available to video chat, and he was like also a hacker, so he could hack into things. So that was a fun little character to play. And during this time, Tia had actually been doing some other voiceover work. She was actually the voice of Sasha in the Bratz cartoon that was on WB Kids.
Oh,
I know. I'm like, let me go watch that and see if I can hear the voice.
yeah.
I'm curious. Uh, and then in 2005, Disney Channel was able to work with Tia and Tamera again with the Disney Channel original movie, Twitches. This movie somewhat repeated the sister sister trope in which twin sisters, Alex and Cameron, are separated at infancy, adopted out, and then they find each other in a store. So the difference on this happens on their 21st birthday, and they discover they're actually witches. So twin plus witches equals twitches. This one's not my favorite, but it's also not a bad movie. Like if it's on, I will watch it and pay attention.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And
It's good. It's a good classic.
yeah. And they ended up making a sequel to this as well. So at this point, the Mowrys are all doing well on the Disney Channel. And then in 2006, Tia ended up getting casted on the series The Game. And this was kind of like her first adult role, breaking out of children's television. And this show was a spinoff of the UPN show Girlfriends. It aired on the WB's news station, the CW. And in 2009, it was canceled. However, Viacom bought the rights to the show, and then they started airing new episodes on BET. And this show lasted for a very long time. It was canceled in 2015, so 9 years.
Wow.
Yeah. During the span of the show, they continued various projects. However, one of those projects was a reality show called Tia and Tamera. And this aired on the Style Network. Rest in peace. That was literally my favorite channel when I was a teenager. First season followed the twins as Tia was prepping and having her first child, which is her son, Cree, who is like taller than her now. It's so crazy. And the second season followed Tamera as she was getting ready to get married to her husband, Adam Housley.
I love this.
Yeah. Did you not watch the show?
No, I don't think I had Style Network at all, so I didn't watch this show.
Oh, I feel so bad for you. Style Network was amazing. There's like How Do I Look and oh, okay.
I would have died.
I'm pretty sure you can stream Tia and Tamera, which is it Peacock that
I'll
has
look it up.
E? Whichever one has E should have Tia and Tamera. It's a cute little reality show. It gives us a view into their personal lives, and like it's probably very scripted, but it kind of gives viewers some insight, like honestly, into how well the Mowrys stay grounded and humble, even though they're like major celebrities.
Mm-hmm.
And after this show was canceled, Tamera was among 5 panelists to join a new talk show, The Real. She joined 2 other Style Network alum, Jeannie Mai, who was the host of How Do I Look, and Adrienne Bailon, who had her own reality show, Empire Girls. We best know her as the Cheetah Girl, though, and 3LW. And they were also joined by Lonnie Love, who was on the sister channel E Network on Chelsea Lately, and then Tamar Braxton, who is a musician and the sister of singer Toni Braxton. She's also on a reality show with all of her sisters. I think it's like Braxton Family something, Values or something like that.
Uh-huh.
The Real started off really strong in 2013. So it was a talk show, and they basically just, it was kind of like The View and stuff, but everyone was a person of color, and it was honestly, it gave like a really girly vibe, so I enjoyed watching it. But after changes started being made to the panel, and like people kept coming and leaving, like, and then also I think a huge part that played into it was like with 2016, like I feel like the climate of our country definitely changed, and like it was like very divided. So like this show became harder and harder to love for audiences, and Tamera ended up leaving, and then shortly after that the show got canceled.
Oh.
But yeah. And then Tahj also stayed working too. He One of his major roles more recently was Tucker in the series Baby Daddy. And that was on what's now Freeform, but it used to be ABC Family. And if you've not watched that show, also highly recommend it. His character is freaking hilarious. Like they always paired him with, so he was like the best friend, and he would also always be paired with his friend's mom, and they were just such a great duo. And I forget her name. It's Melissa something, but she was the one that played, I was like Bonnie Joe or whatever in Reba, like the tall blonde lady.
Oh,
She's hysterical, and them together is funny. And to conclude, the Mowrys, continue to work, and they stay in the limelight with their work in entertainment. And I've always been a fan of the 3 of them. For some reason, I feel like their work comes in waves. But after doing the research for this episode, I realized with all the voiceover work that we don't realize they're doing, like they're always working. So hats off.
I think they're just like a genuine family that's just like trying to do well and be successful. Like they're not trying to take more than what they want. I think that's why everything is so genuine and successful. I feel like once people get famous, they kind of feel like they're entitled to certain things. I don't feel like the Mowry family feels that way. Like from everything you told me, it feels very genuine, down to earth. Like fame is just fame to them. They just want to work and they're happy in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, like they're very wholesome and
Hmm.
genuine, and I feel like family is their number one.
Yeah. I think this is what a lot of other families try to portray, but they're just doing it naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. They've got it down. So I thought, I'm gonna do sister sister. I don't know if I'll do smart guy, maybe, but
Yeah.
I just thought I could feature like their family because
I
they're
loved
they're
that.
more than sister sister. What do you have for us today, Miss Amber?
So I told you guys I would get back to it, and today I'm going to be talking about America's Next Top Model. So my sources are Wikipedia, Business Insider, my Hulu subscription, and my brain after watching a lot of seasons. Honestly, I really didn't need to do much research like on this show itself. For those who know. Um, so America's Next Top Model, also known as ANTM or Top Model, was an American reality competition series where aspiring models competed to win the title of America's Next Top Model. Each season or cycle of America's Next Top Model had 9 to 16 episodes and started with 10 to 16 contestants. Contestants were judged weekly on their overall appearance, participation in challenges, and best shot from that week's photo shoot. Each episode, one contestant was eliminated, though in rare cases, a double elimination or no elimination was given by the consensus of the judging panel. The show was created and executively produced by former model Tyra Banks alongside Ken Mock and Kenya Barris, who were developers. The series premiered on May 20th, 2003, and ran until April 10th, 2018. Which, for the record, I did not realize that this show ran as long as it did because I kind of dropped off at a certain point.
Oh yeah.
2018. So the show ran for a total of 24 seasons or cycles. And we had a lot of judges and people involved in the show, but I feel like I just wanted to point out a couple of the most notable judges slash people that we had involved. So we had Nigel Barker, who was a judge slash photographer, and he was British and he was most known for being, gorgeous. Most of the women found him attractive. Um,
Sorry, it's so funny you say that because I always thought that, but I was also like, is he straight?
He was, because I remember at one point he said something like "my wife," da 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 da, and I was like, "Oh shit, he's married." So I thought that was
Okay,
wild.
okay. But
So
yeah,
that
I always was like, oh, he's attractive.
definitely. Then we had Janice Dickenson, who was a judge, and she's best known on the show for coining herself as the first supermodel
Hmm.
and being a bitch. She also had some problematic moments where she kind of pushed the stereotype of like the model standard. So like she didn't really support the changing standard of women's bodies, and she didn't support plus size women and stuff. So she wasn't the greatest, but she was funny in her bitchy moments. Then we had Jay Manuel, who was the photo shoot manager slash creative director. And that, for those who don't know, he's just the silver haired guy who with the spiky hair like Pauly D. He was one of two Jays because we had two Jays. And then we had Miss J. Alexander, who was our Diva Runway extraordinaire, aka the runway
Slay.
coach. I love Miss
Slay.
J. She was awesome. Um, then we had Twiggy, who was also another judge slash model. She was a model from the 70s, I believe. And she kind of coined the short mod hairstyle. And she also later replaced Janice Dickenson as one of the like as the model judge because there was always like a model judge alongside Tyra.
Oh, I did not know she came on like full time. I know she would like I watched earlier seasons, and so I
Yeah.
know she would come on as a guest judge sometimes, but I didn't realize she came on full time.
She did for a stint. It basically, yeah, she came on, she was spotty, and then they, I guess, once they realized she kind of worked, they like, once Janice was done or whatever, like they put her in the
Yeah.
place.
Nice.
Yeah, so she was good. I kind of liked her because I felt like she gave real opinions about like the modeling industry, but she was really wholesome. She was also British,
Yeah.
so I felt like, I don't know, I feel like British people kind of, they're proper. So like they say things in a way that doesn't sound as mean, even if they're like, I don't know,
Yeah.
you can tell me to fuck off in a British accent. I'm
They
kind of
have
like,
an
okay, you're welcome.
elegant way of it's how you say things, not what you say. And
Yeah.
they have an elegant way of saying things.
Yeah. Like I said, they could tell me to fuck off and I'd be like, great, love it. I will. I'll go that way, this way. Okay. I wanted to give a breakdown of the season because there's a lot of stuff that goes on. Start with the audition process. And this was where Tyra and her team would see a bunch of audition tapes and gather the girls that they felt were the most interesting to either LA or New York City, because that would kind of be where their starting point was and usually where the show would reside for the season. I found so it's funny because the first episode of the season was competing to get on to the actual show. Like you weren't even competing on the show, you were competing to get on. I thought it was interesting. It added extra drama to kind of get to see that process of how they were kind of selecting the girls for the show. And it kind of gave like American Idol vibes. Remember when we got to see that audition
Yes.
process? You get
That's
silly
what I was
people.
gonna say. That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was gonna say.
I loved the audition process. I feel like people thought it took too long, and I like that they brought it. It was usually a two-parter, so it'd be like a 2-hour special. Great. I love that. I don't think you needed like the audition process like American Idol where it went on for weeks. It was like, chill out. I don't need that much.
Yeah, but also because like before the show started today, we were talking about Love is Blind and how it
Mhm.
can kind of be hard to just like digest these characters, and where this allows us to see everybody from the start. So it's like, who are these people? Oh, that was that girl who made this impression during her audition.
Exactly. I think that's a really good point too that I didn't even consider is you're learning these people as we're getting like comfortable with the show and the competition. That's a really good point. Um, So after they would pick who they wanted to compete on the show, they'd usually bring them to the house they were all staying at. And I think what's kind of funny is as the show started gaining more traction, maybe got a little bit more money because more people were watching. It switched from UPN to actually being on the CW. So they got that coin. So the houses started getting a little bit better. They were a little bit, there was just more to work with. The cars went from being like those white vans, like the little sprinter vans, to being like legit limos. Shout out to the first girl season, the season like with the first girls, because they're looking at all these other girls like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Which I think is so funny. And then so from there on, after we picked everyone and we're going into the basics, so your basic episode was going to be a basic photo shoot / challenge episode. So it was pretty standard. They competed in some sort of a skill challenge that taught them a new modeling skill, whether it be walking, uh, wearing long dresses, just anything that you could kind of consider within the modeling industry. They kind of taught them a new skill. And then following the skill challenge, it was usually a photo shoot with a specific theme. And this didn't necessarily fit into the same theme as what they learned in the skill challenge, but sometimes it would. And after the photo shoot is then when the panel where the models would go question and sometimes even be challenged there on things they learned during the week. Sometimes they would come in and they would be challenged in front of the judges where they would, let's say you guys learned how to walk today in heels, where, well, here's these really high heels, come and do a model walk for us and we want to see like, what you learned. And that wasn't necessarily a judgment on their elimination, but it was just to see your progression as a model throughout like each week essentially. Then there was Tyra mail. So there would be letters left at the house that the contestants were staying at for them to find. Sometimes it would give them hints as to what they would think the next challenge was or the photo shoot. It was kind of funny because they would start trying to decipher it, and it would be like a riddle, and they never really figured it out. They would go so far left instead of like what it was kind of trying to say. So these Tyra mail letters, they would be read off by like any contestant. I think they kind of started like handing it off, like each person would get a chance to read them, whatever it said. And I noticed as the series would go on, people would start trying to pocket the Tyra mail as like memorabilia because like there wasn't much from the show you could keep. But I noticed like how smart is that to keep like a little Tyra mail and like 20 years later to have something like that? It's kind of cool.
That's brilliant. Yeah.
I love it. So basically what would happen is whenever someone noticed that a Tyra letter was waiting for them, they would scream, Tyra mail. And all the girls would come running from basically every corner of the house. It low-key gave me Blue's Clues vibes. We just got a letter. We just
No,
got a
really?
letter.
When you were talking about that earlier, I held back, but that was where my brain went. I was like, well, this ain't Blue's Clues mail.
Literally. It's so funny. I love how like every part of this I'm tying back to like something else in the 90s. So the girls were brought to a judging panel on a weekly basis where they each brought up to the panel. Wow, they were each brought up to the panel to review their photo from the photo shoot that week and be critiqued by the judges. As I mentioned earlier, there were also many challenges that were sometimes just silly or related to the skill they had learned that week. After all this, the judges had the girls leave and decided out of all of them who would be eliminated. Tyra and the judges would then bring them back and then do the infamous judging ceremony with Tyra, where she would call the contestants up one by one. She would have their picture, reveal to them, you're staying. And then it would get back to the bottom two, where it was extremely dramatic. She would take a whole pause to talk about what both of these two contestants did right and wrong this week and overall. And then the final picture would be revealed. Tears usually followed as the eliminated made their dramatic exit. And the, I think my favorite part after is the savage way that they had a cast picture. If you watch the show, it would be a cast photo that they did at the beginning of the season. And as the person got eliminated, they would get photoshopped out of the picture. So by the end of the season, it would be down to the two people in the photo that were, competing to win. It was so weird. And then zoop, the last person. We also had our beloved makeover episodes, and each season featured this. And this was when Tyra and her crew would get together and kind of decide how to modify each contestant's looks so that they were more fitting for the modeling world, quote unquote. I think they were doing a little bit more here, but we'll get into it. This ranged from small makeovers that barely changed their appearances, small hair trims, simple highlights, but could also get on the more extreme side of things. I have a couple here. So one example I have is a contestant from season 5. Her name was Cassandra. And she left actually after they chopped her hair off, like all of it. She had this long hair and they chopped it all off to do kind of a Twiggy hairstyle. For those who don't know, Twiggy was a model in the 70s and she did this really, really short. Actually, you know what? It wasn't compared to Twiggy. It was compared to Mia Farrow from Rosemary's Baby, I think it was. Like that.
Like a pixie cut almost.
Yeah, thank you. I couldn't think of the dang word. I kept wanting to say bob, but I knew that was wrong. Thank you, pixie. So they cut her hair really short and they dyed it this ugly ass bleach blonde that was almost like yellow. And so she was already disappointed, but she did that, right? And she goes to judging and they basically said it wasn't short enough and they wanted to cut it shorter than it already was. Like they wanted it short on her head. And she basically said no, and she ends up leaving. Like she said, I'm not going to do that. No, thank you. And I feel like they kind of truly humiliated this girl because they found out that she was a pageant girl from Texas. And they were kind of trying to basically say like that doesn't translate well into modeling. And they were trying to break her down kind of like military style in a sense. And like,
yeah,
they kind of bullied her. They didn't really give her a fair chance, in my opinion. So another one was another extreme makeover case, but I guess a little bit less dramatic. So her name was Michelle, and she was from Cycle 7. She had dark, medium-length hair, and they decided to also bleach her hair, but then sew in extensions, which took hours, longer than it probably should have, and it was really painful. So she was at the salon well past when everyone was already getting their makeovers. This is when it started getting kind of ridiculous. They were doing things just to add flair to the show, I feel. That's my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, they ended up praising her at the judging for not making a peep, not complaining. Because they asked her, like, was it painful? How did you feel? She's like, yeah, it was extremely painful. And they're like, well, great for not, like, complaining about it. Didn't love that. So they were basically trying to get a rise out of these girls. And I get that was what we were doing in reality TV, but like you're damaging self-esteem and also damaging people physically, like
yeah,
not good. So, as I said, the makeover process was kind of presented to us as a fun episode back in the day where we got to watch these normal, sometimes quote unquote small town girls turn into models. I think we looked at it as a fun transformation episode. And I feel like we were originally on Tyra's side as far as the makeovers were and how like even if the girls were being apprehensive, we were kind of like, girl, you're getting this once in a lifetime opportunity. Like, what are you crying about? I feel like in hindsight, I don't feel that way anymore. I feel that Tyra was forcing these makeovers, like no matter how much resistance was being had, and like she was gonna, it was either her way or the highway. And I feel like that wasn't
Hmm.
a good enough answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but this was back in the day. Reality TV was brand new. You take what you see for face value, whereas now we know what goes on behind the scenes of these types of shows. So it's understandable that you feel one way then and feel another way now.
Yeah, and I guess that's a good perspective to remind me about too, because we also have to realize like Tyra produced and made this show herself. People didn't want this show. Like she barely got UPN to take on her show, so like it was like pulling teeth to get a network to even sign her show on, or I don't know what you would call it, like take it on. So I like while we're seeing a lot of controversial things, this was the 2000s, like you said, this they're in the trenches. They have no concept of what to base off of. And low key, we were kind of toxic back then a little bit. We didn't have a lot of the right supports that we needed. So,
Yeah.
I guess it's a good tool to look back on. Another thing that they did throughout the series was travel to a different country. If you were a contestant and you made it pretty far in the season, you pretty much knew that the travel episode was coming. Even since season one, every season, usually around 6 to 8 people are flown to an international city of Tyra's choice. Typically, the city was one that was part of fashion or in the modeling world. I mean, obviously, duh, this is America's Next Top Model. Like, we're not just going to go fly off to somewhere random. So, for example, first season they went to Paris, the fashion capital of the world, of course. I thought that was really cool. Again, they did them kind of dirty with the way they had them stay. They stayed in, I think, one bedroom with like two twin beds or something like that. People were sleeping on the floor and stuff. It was wild. But the show continued to bring people to a lot of other cool cities. There were some, for example, as Milan, Italy, Cape Town, South Africa, Barcelona, Spain, Bangkok, Thailand, just to rattle off a few. So I thought that was pretty cool. I think the international episodes were pretty interesting. Did you watch any of did you watch America's Next Top Model much?
I would just watch reruns of the early seasons, like when they would play on, was it E or MTV, something like that. Like
Something
they would
like
just play reruns. So I would watch those like on weekends.
yeah.
So I'm familiar with some of it.
Think I watched right up until like 2009, maybe even one of the seasons in 2010. And I think like I dropped off around there.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, they went on for a lot longer, clearly. So another type of episode that they had the Go See episode. And Go Sees were model castings. And basically, the way that they did it on the show is that Tyra and her team would usually set up 3 to 5 Go Sees with specific brands. Um, and this usually happened after they traveled to a different country to add to like some of the stress and like discomfort of trying to find these locations. Because basically, what would happen is they were handed a map, given addresses, and usually some form of transportation, whether it's a taxi or whatever they had in that country. And their goal was to get to as many of these go-sees as possible. And the time frame was set up because they would have a starting point wherever they were, and they basically had to go to as many of the go-sees as possible and get back to the starting point before the time was up. So it was always fun to kind of see the ticking time clock of like them trying to get from point A to point B and getting lost in the stress of that. But also, it was the go sees that was fun too. So basically, the contestants brought their book with them, which was just a collection of photos they had taken, like throughout their photo shoots, so that the models, or I'm sorry, the brands could have an idea of kind of how they photograph in different types of outfits, lighting, situations. And then they would usually have you do a runway walk and try their clothes on to see how their clothes kind of fit on your type of a body, to see if they would essentially book you for a runway show or for some kind of ad campaign that they have going on. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think these were actual go-sees. I think this was something they set up and they said, hey, like, do what you would do. And like, they paid the brands to be on TV or the brands paid whatever. I don't think these were actual go-sees. Couldn't have been.
5,000%. 5,000%.
Right.
It's all
Like,
staged.
yeah, I was going to say, because, I mean, these brands have like real models they could be talking to, you know?
Yeah.
So that was always fun to see. Sometimes when people, like when the models wouldn't get back in time, or I'm sorry, contestants, models, whatever you want to call them, they would throw temper tantrums because they would tell them, like, I'm sorry, like, you didn't get back in time, like, you're disqualified. And these competitions would usually end up with some kind of a prize. You could win some kind of maybe shopping spree shoes or some kind of event you got to go to. So it always sucked whenever you lost. And some girls definitely lost their cool when that
Yeah.
happened. And of course, like with them being in another country too, there was the language barrier that ended up sometimes being an issue too, on top of not being able to read the map. So that added an extra flair too. And then of course the final episode, which was another 2-part extravaganza, and it featured 3 top finalists at the beginning. So part 1 was the finale of the CoverGirl campaign, because for those who know, they would rattle off the prizes that you would win at the end of every, or like at every judging ceremony. And one of them was getting a CoverGirl campaign. So basically they were shooting the cover for whoever was going to win. So they'd shoot the cover, they do a little commercial with them where they would have to talk, laugh, whatever have you. And then the 3 girls are judged based on their CoverGirl campaign that they shoot. After that, it shoots down to 2 finalists. And then we get into our second half. And then there's a giant runway show for the 2 finalists. And they walk in a full-on production with other models, which was funny because I noticed a lot of them would be like ex America's Next Top Model, like models. So it was a whole A&TM production basically, but it was set up for them. And then, of course, our final judging, where we're judging the girls not only on their runway, but also the entire encompassment of the season, basically. And that was when you got your America's Next Top Model. And for those who also read 17 magazine, most of the time they'd end up on the cover of 17 magazine.
Yep.
That was a thing.
Guilty.
I think in CoverGirl, right? I mean, CoverGirl, Cosmo Girl at one point too, right?
I'm not sure about that. I do know 17 for sure. I remember CariDee was on there, and that I was like, who is this? And I had never watched at that point. And then after her season, I had started seeing like the marathons they'd play on the weekends. And then eventually I got to hers and I was like, oh, that's who she is.
She was something else.
Yeah, I wasn't very impressed.
Keen on her.
When I watched it, I was like, oh, she won the whole thing, huh?
I was surprised that she won. I feel, and I mean controversial, but I feel like they almost seek out who they think is, gonna win. You know, I feel like most competition series do that. They're like that person.
Oh, yeah.
And now I want to get into what I think everyone's kind of waiting for, which is some of the toxicity of America's Next Top Model. I feel like there was a lot of it within the show that we really didn't know how to react to back in the day. There was definitely controversy around race, the season when Tyra had each contestant change race. We'll talk about that a little bit. Weight, where the first couple of seasons, they actually weighed the girls on camera and set them with workout routines to maintain their bodies, which I can understand a fitness routine, but there's no reason to be weighing these women on TV and showing their weight for everyone to see. Extremely controversial. And then also, of course, what the show considered to be plus size. I feel like this is one of the bigger controversies of the show. And it probably contributed to a lot of girls having body dysmorphia and possibly other EDs. To be healthy was to be considered obese on the show, which I found absolutely insane. Tyra loved to hide behind the shtick that this is what is expected in the modeling industry. However, the whole point of the show was to kind of break that mold of the average model. So I felt like she was kind of contradicting herself a lot. Like, I get that was the standard, but your whole point was to break that standard. How are you upholding that? It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So, so like I said, some of the more controversial, toxic, wild, whatever you want to call them, moments. So they judged girls who had previously stripped. They heavily judged anyone who basically said like that they had done that at any point, and they basically, and this was usually in the audition process, they wouldn't even let them pass at that point if they had any whiff of the fact that you had potentially danced, stripped, what have you. They judged that really hard. I don't know if that's a wild topic. I feel it's kind of controversial. I don't, you know what I mean? What do you think?
Yeah. Don't ask me what I think on that.
Okay.
We'll cut that question out because, yeah.
Yeah, so basically, that's just a little bit controversial. I don't know. I added this in here because it is
It's
a little
not
bit
my place
controversial, I
to
feel.
judge. That's my thing. It's not my place to judge, and I'm glad I'm not in this situation.
Yeah. Yeah. I just don't think it was something they needed to comment on or care about, in my opinion. But I feel like they made it a big
Yeah.
deal because they were trying to be like so wholesome, but this show itself was not. So it felt weird to me that they were making that stark contrast right there. Another was when Danielle had to close her tooth gap when she didn't want to.
Oh,
They,
yeah.
spoiler alert, she doesn't really do it. She kind of like partially closes it, but doesn't fully do it. And Tyra basically openly scolds her at panel about it for not doing it. And then later on in a later season, a girl has another gap and she asks her to widen it in a later cycle. So
Yeah, I think Tyra just went in these things where she just like was like, I'm the artist, and like she just
yeah.
did what she felt in the moment. It was so weird.
Yeah, because like I said, I think it was because like she kind of had to do everything from the ground up herself. So I feel like she thought like this is what she needed to do, you know? And I
Yeah.
think that's where the controversy kind of comes from. No one was really telling her no because it was her show.
Yeah. Yeah.
When Tyra yells and loses her cool on Tiffany in front of all the girls after eliminating her, when Tyra felt that Tiffany didn't feel like sad or remorseful enough when she was leaving the show. That was really what she yelled at her about, honestly, which I thought was crazy because I went back and watched to see what she was angry about. And that was really it, is like Tiffany wasn't crying when she left. And she essentially like, I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you.
It was an ego thing. That's all it was. It's like, oh, you're not giving me the reaction I want.
Yeah.
I'm going to get upset.
Because like back in the day, we were kind of all on Tyra's side, right? But watching it back, I'm like, what did she do that was wrong?
Yeah.
So and I think this is probably the most controversial. I mean, in my opinion, this is. It's the Got Milk ad that they did when the girls changed race. So, like I was saying, I told you I would bring this back up because this is definitely controversial. So, they basically just they painted them different colors, and it's so controversial actually that they completely removed it from Hulu. So, if you guys remember, we didn't have America's Next Top Model for a second. We had all the episodes on Hulu. They took it away for a hot second, and then they all reappeared. Well, for some reason I wanted to go see if I could find the episode again to watch it, and I kept getting to the season and then trying to get to the episode, and I finally realized it just wasn't there. So, conveniently left out. I mean, I get why you left it out. It is extremely controversial, but I feel like I don't know. It's one of those things that it did happen. People saw that it happened. You can't pretend it didn't happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's kind of my stance on that. Um,
Yeah.
so why take it away? Just let it be. Next was Jody and her extremely long, almost overnight mouth and teeth reconstructive surgery. Um, that was a thing. I think it took her like god awful amount of time, and it was because her teeth weren't great. And like I know she probably wanted the reconstructive surgery too, but I mean they made her compete the next day after basically not sleeping. It was kind of like they set it up for her to like be miserable.
No, yeah, I've had oral surgery. It is awful. Like, I've had other surgeries as well, but the oral surgery, like, I'm a baby.
Me too. Yeah. I
I,
can't imagine.
yeah,
And you probably can't be on like any of your pain medication because you have to be alert for what you're doing. So you're in
yeah.
pain. No, forget it.
And it's like in your face, so it's just constantly hurting.
Oh, can you imagine your jaw just like throbbing while you're trying to do oh my God, I could never. I also just got
Mm-mm.
like a root canal and like I got all that done. So like I know mouth pain right now. So like I can't
Yeah.
imagine like no.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
The previously aforementioned awful makeovers. Just wanted to slide that in there. It's definitely controversial, definitely toxic. And then to last, so it was making girls who had recently lost a friend pose in photo shoots that embodied death. And this actually happened twice. It's super fucked up. So it was once in cycle 4, Kaylin, she found out her friend had passed away right before a photo shoot in a graveyard about the 7 deadly sins, where she had to pose in a coffin inside a 6-foot grave. So that's the first one. Then we had another contestant. Oh, I think it's JL. Oh, how do I pronounce your name? I think it was JL. And so basically, she had heard her friend had passed away from an overdose. And right after that, they had to pose in a photo shoot where models had to depict different ways of being murdered. There's that.
I
That's
don't
kind
think
of
that's an appropriate topic regardless.
no, it's not. But there was a lot of things that they did that were really controversial that I think they were trying to shed light on, but they kind of in a weird way disrespected what they were trying to do. It didn't hit the
Mm-hmm.
right note, certain things.
Yeah.
Um
Good old 2000s.
not to end on such a dark note, but yeah, essentially that was America's Next Top Model. I mean, in the sense of like what it was, I still kind of love the show for what it was and what I took it for originally. I understand there's a lot of things that they did that could have been done differently now, but I think for the time that it was in, it stands,
Yeah.
for the most part, minus some of the things. I mean, there are some things that could have definitely changed. We didn't need to be like switching like races openly on TV and stuff, but you did it, so like don't hide behind it.
Yeah.
Um, but I did love Top Model when it was good and not dark. It was a good show. It was fun to kind of see like what the modeling industry could kind of be like.
Yeah.
So sorry
Yeah,
that
it
was so
was
long.
not what we want to get into.
Yeah, sorry that was so long. I could go on for like days and days. There was like even more um recent stuff that you had showed me on like I think TikTok and social media about
Yeah.
some of the girls speaking out, but I was like, oh my God, I'm talking for so long, I can't.
No, like that stuff, like current things and stuff. I feel like we could do like either bonus episodes or like Patreon if we get there. Like we'll definitely have like some bonus content in which we can do these kind of deep dives, and like
Yeah.
we try to keep things light, bright, and beautiful. On this side, we can get into like some darker stuff. So keep sharing with your friends, you guys, if you don't mind rating and reviewing. That way people can find us. So we can get a bigger community and start doing stuff like that because we're really excited.
Yeah, and we want to connect with you guys and know like we can even get into more of like the topics you guys want to hear firsthand. If you've got a suggestion, please reach out anywhere on social media, our website, email. We want to hear because we want to
Yes.
give you all what you want too.
Yeah, yeah, it's definitely more of like a community thing. Like if you're following us on Instagram, you'll see we post questions, and those questions are here too. If you're on YouTube, it's, we've got the question in the description. If you're listening on Spotify, you can participate in our Q&A or our poll or whatever. And yeah, so be sure you get into that because we do share those responses. You can DM us too. We want to hear and chat with you guys. We've made a handful of friends already, and
Yeah.
yeah, we love you guys. Yeah, speaking of which, if you are listening on Spotify, we've got a poll. What is your favorite America's Next Top Model judge? So be sure to vote, and we'll probably just do that as well on Instagram. So be on the lookout in our stories for that poll. We just like to have fun here. Thank you guys so much for tuning in this week for Posh and Plastic, and we will catch you next week.